Good win down at Atlanta. Obviously, second half was very different than the first half, which is good. It's something we talked a lot about, was being able to finish games. And I said it after the game to our team, but I don't know if that's a game we win a year ago. And I'm glad that, they were able to bear down and do what we had to do. We played complementary football, did a really nice job on special teams, in particular, flipping the field. Defense, held them at bay for the most part. And, our offense was able to do what we needed to do to win the game. There's more that we have to do, but there was enough, we did enough that we needed to do to win that game. Penalties, are an issue, obviously. I went back through it. 2 false starts, 1 on punt, so there's 1 false start on offense. So that's good to see that is cleaned up. 2 delays on special teams, both were things that we wanted to do at that point in time. So I'm not worried about that. There was a substitution penalty that was solely on us as coaches. But then we have 2 holds. One of them, I guess you could call. The other one is you could probably call on every play if you wanted to. And then 2 pass interferences. Again, one I think a little questionable. The second one was probably more there, but it was better that than letting the kid run over the top. So I thought in the second half to come out and only have 5 yards in penalties was a good sign for us, just in improving upon that. And then we're able to move the ball, and then we're able to stop the run for them and limit their big plays, and got away with a win. So I thought overall a decent day. Second half certainly better than the first. That's a tough place to play. There wasn't a lot of energy in there, and we have to create our own. And we can't expect though the other team to provide that for us. We got to provide that for ourselves. So not a great first half, much better second half, and a lot to work on and a lot to improve on. But I think we grew as a team, in the resiliency department more than anything as this game went on. So proud of the way we finished.
You mentioned it here, and JT said it after the game too, that this team last year maybe doesn't win that game. What do you think allowed it to be different this year and walk away with it?
Well, I think that they believed, in everything we're doing. I think everybody believed in their role as well. Whether it was exactly what they want their role to be or not, they understand how important it is. And whether it's you're a gunner running down on punt and have to make a play, or whether you're blocking and that's maybe your role on kick return or punt return at some point, everybody's willing to do their job to help this team win. And I don't know necessarily 100% that was the case last year. Again, 60-some kids last year, 54 new ones, this year as well. But I thought having that core group of guys here, that could sort of show the way is really important to be able to continue to build this team and bring it together. And I thought that's what we did a really nice job of. And that starts with, DJ and JT and Trent and guys like that, that really have been here for a while, understand the standard, and help us, continue to build that.
And now that you've had a chance to go back and watch some of the game, what do you think wasn't clicking offensively, especially in the pass game throughout that first half into the second?
Yeah, so, I mean, when you go through it, there's 2 or 3 drops. There's 2 or 3 pressures that get home. There's, 2 or 3 missed throws, and then there's 2 or 3 routes that are the star of the show that get bottled up or just, convert differently than what we had anticipated. There's 11 incompletions, I think, in there, and that sums about all of them up. It's not any one thing. I think it's a mix of a bunch of things that all happen at different times. And again, that's kind of when we were talking before about the penalty thing. If it was one guy that just keeps jumping off sides, well, you replace that guy. When it's one guy that drops the ball over and over and over again, then you probably have to get the next guy ready to go and build that competition back in until that guy is ready to go again. So that's not the case, though. So it really is something that falls. When you throw the ball, there's a lot of complexity in there, from the protection to the accuracy to seeing the coverage to converting the routes to then catching the ball and getting separation and catching the ball. So there's a lot in there that has to go right, and we just didn't have it go right, on those missed opportunities. And there's 3 or 4 that hit our hands that we got to come down with, and we just didn't.
And I know we talked about it a few times last week, but you guys were getting Georgia State off of their bye, and you guys have had some of your best performances off of it. Yeah. What kind of difficulties does that bring when you're facing a team that is a little bit more fresh?
Well, they're a little bit more fresh. They're, probably a little bit more healthy. The thing the negative of it is if you have momentum going, it stuns that momentum or stalls that momentum. That's the only negative of it. I thought it was a disadvantage to us after 15 days off to come back in and play, but we did just fine. So that's the one thing that just takes a minute to get that moving again. But there are benefits to, sitting there and breaking that other team down and putting a game plan in for 2 or 3 days in a bye week and then going to the next game and seeing if it holds true or not. And if it holds true, then you feel really good about where you're at. If it doesn't, then obviously there's a little bit more work to do when you get into that next week. So there's a lot of benefits to it, obviously, and that team this team coming up here will be as well. And I think there's another 1 or 2 as the year goes on, or at least a Thursday night game for another 1 or 2 of those opponents. So we'll be up against that through the majority of the season, and we just got to, be able to deal with it and be very aware of our self-scout, and make sure that whatever we're giving, we're finding ways to now take it away and not let that be the focal point of doing what we've done the whole way through.
The last couple of weeks, Coach Hitchler has talked a lot about being able to move certain guys around on defense a lot, especially like JT and DJ. How have you seen that give your defense an advantage compared to last year? Because, the metrics, they're all top of the group of 5. So. Yeah,
well, I think that first of all, can they handle it? And guys like JT and DJ certainly can. And I think that's really important. You got to start there because you may want to do it, and if you can't do it, you can't do it. But obviously we can with guys like that. DJ's a special football player, just plays hard, plays physical, can cover, can tackle, can blitz, can really do everything. And JT, you watch him come down into the box, and the things he does in there are, phenomenal. So that the ability to do that is something you always want to do. You don't want to just say this guy only does this, but can you do it? And do you have the football acumen to do it? And then do you have the overall ability to do it? And both those guys do. So it's really important that, we continue to move them around and not let anybody know exactly where they're going to be at all times.
And I know one of the takeaways you had that you wanted to clean up after going back all the way to preseason scrimmages was things like penalties and pre-snap penalties. After a game like that, do you kind of have to go back to the basics a little bit this week to try and clean some of that stuff up?
Well, again, I think we had one false start. So there's not a pre-snap penalty in there. The 2 delays we took. So that's not, I don't have an issue with that. One other one was on a punt, where we jumped off sides. And that was just, he was trying to move to get a better angle, and then the ball was snapped. So that, I'm not worried about that. The one that bothers me is the post-snap penalty. When we had that, dead ball personal foul. I don't think there's any place for that. That's 15 yards. That extends that drive. So that's frustrating. And then the substitution penalty. That's solely on us as coaches. That's not on the players. That's on us as coaches. Not realizing or not understanding they're going fast at that moment, trying to get a different package in, and we weren't able to do that. But then there's other ones in there, and there's not. We talk about unnecessary roughness. We talk about a block in the back. Probably shouldn't have happened. It's close. It's as close to the side as it could be, but it might be in the back. That's how they saw it. Substitution on us. 1 false start on offense. Right. 2 delays, both on special teams, and then the 2 pass interferences. And again, one of them, you'll talk to DJ in a minute, and he won't say anything about it, but I don't see it. And then the other one on JT is as pretty close as it gets to being that. So the in-play penalties, they're going to happen. And aggressive teams, that play a physical brand of football, it might happen. But prior to the snap and post-snap is really what kills you. And if there's anything that shows up over and over and over again in here, it's an issue. But there's not those things where, when I look at it, and I thought to come back out in that second half and have 1 5-yard penalty, and that's it. The other one, again, was the delay that we took on punt to get a little more distance and pin it down at the 1. I feel decent about it. I don't love it. It's 100 yards. We talked about it in there. We can't give up a full field's length to any team and expect to win. But I question some of them, and I do like that most of them are aggressive in play penalties. They're not pre and post snaps.
Touch on it a little bit, your special teams performance, but for Patrick to kind of have a rough start to the season, have a really big game, especially for a team that likes to run the ball as much as you guys, just how important is that to controlling the field position? With
the punter, Patrick? Yeah, I think it's really important. I think he had a 50-yard punt in there. What else did he have in there? 50-yard punt. He had another one down at the 1, and then he averaged over 40 on his punt. So that was really important for us to be able to do. He is a weapon and can be a weapon. You saw him run the ball once. You saw him, he can throw the ball. He can do really everything that we need him to do out there. He's not just a punter. He can rugby, he can pocket, he can kick to the right and left. And those are all things that we knew and identified as us needing to fix as we go into this next year. Sitting in the pocket alone was something we wanted to be able to move around and, have the fake abilities. And there's a lot he could do in there too.
You mentioned a little bit on Saturday that there are some opportunities you thought Alonzo may be able to fire the ball into some tighter windows. Now that you got the chance to look at the all-22, how is it compared to guys not getting open through the scheme, or him not wanting to just fire the ball in more?
Yeah, no, I think that the one where that was it was just a vertical route down the seam he put in there, and we got I thought got hit pretty late, on Logan Kyle, but ultimately that didn't get called. But that was one that he was trying to fit in there. Other than that, he was putting balls in decent places. There was good defense, or the ball was we dropped it. And, we just got to do a better job at the top of the route. We just got to, run these routes with a little bit more speed, be a little bit more, dynamic and physical. And when they get hands on us, we got to be able to battle back on that. And I think those are all parts of it. And then there was moments where we just got congested in certain areas, or we converted a route that we didn't see. And then there was really one giant play, and Alonzo knows that, and we talked about it, that he started on the left side and had an easy 6 or 7 yards, so he took that. But if he started on the other side, he probably had a touchdown. They blitzed the corner but pushed the safety over the middle of the field, and we were running straight down the field all by ourselves with nobody around us. But he took the given that we would expect him to take on that play. So that was one that we just missed, but it wasn't any fault of his. He took what they were giving him and did a really good job of getting 6 or 7 yards on that play.
We've seen Alonzo in the design run game a lot. We haven't seen him scramble quite as much as maybe last year. Have you guys had the chance to ask Dean the same question tomorrow?
Yeah.
If you had the chance to talk to him about his scrambling ability, do you think he's maybe not feeling the pocket as well?
Yeah, I think, but he is getting it out of his hand too, and I think that's the other part of it. If he was sitting back there and holding and taking sacks, that would be a moment where he should scramble. But he is seeing it clearly. He's getting the ball out, and he's putting it in places where we should be able to catch it. We just weren't able to do that, whether it be the defense or just not enough separation in some of the routes. So I do like that. It'd be a different conversation if we had 5 or 6 sacks in that game, or 3 or 4 sacks in that game. Then you'd say, hey, let's not take the sack, pull this down and run it or throw it away. But he's on time, and he's getting the ball out of his hand quickly, and I think that's important.
I know Katie asked you about Louisiana coming off the bye, but it just feels like this upcoming matchup is similar in terms of last week, in terms of Louisiana also played a top 20 team, and I know they've gone off to a little bit of a slow start, but they've also had a couple wins too. Just what are you kind of seeing on film of them as a whole so far?
Yeah, that they're really good. You guys all saw the Marshall game. In the end of the Marshall game, they made a quarterback switch, and this kid can run all over the place and throw, and he is tough to bring down. But really, at the offensive side, it starts with number 3, I believe. This kid's a great mid-zone runner, and he pushes it out over the tackle, and then he'll take that edge if he has it, or he'll cut it back. He ran away from Missouri right down the middle of the field after breaking 1 or 2 tackles. I thought his McNeese game was one of the better I've seen. Like, they started to come in and dive at his ankles, and later in that game, he jumps guys at 2 or 3 different moments where they're coming in to kind of just chop them down. And I thought that was really told me a lot about his football intelligence. Their offensive line is good. The receivers are good. Their tight end is big dude that can smother you. So that's their the offensive side of it. And then they get into this +1 quarterback run game now, and they're really in a situation where they can use this kid to run and throw and do everything they need to do. Defensively, there won't be, I think we're pretty aggressive on defense. They're probably more aggressive on defense. They'll have 6, 7 guys up at the line of scrimmage. They'll drop guys out from the line of scrimmage back to a Tampa 2 running down the middle of the field. They'll play man, straight man, zero all over the place. They'll blitz edges. They'll bring one more than you have. They'll pick it inside to the slide side, and they'll walk the guy up and pick the center and end up rolling back around. And then there's just a whole lot in here that they do with even, triple trail blitz through the A gaps where both backers are blitzing and then the safety starts running downhill. So they're an aggressive bunch, and we got to make sure that we're able to win a little bit on the outside, and we got to understand protection-wise and run scheme of what's going to work against those things, because that does present opportunities to pop some too, right? So we just got to make sure that, we're attacking and we're not just defending, right? We don't want to defend. We want to attack, especially on offense.
And then in terms of running the football for you guys, what does it say about you guys collectively as a unit, as teams start to load the box and try to adjust that? You guys still did have some success running the football even with 8-9 in the box.
Yeah, I think the physical nature of it, certainly I think that's the story it's telling, is that there are 8 guys in the box, 7, 8 guys in the box, and we are still able to grind it out. I think Wayne's running really hard behind his pads, and Jordan's 235, 240 pounds, whatever he might be. He's hard to bring down, and he very rarely goes down on first contact. So those are things that, especially when you're at a game like we were in, a tight game, and they had so many threats on offense, the longer you could hold on to that football, and keep drives alive, the better off you're going to be. So I think that's, does speak volumes about the physicality of the offensive line, the tight end room, and then also the way the running backs are running.
Just last one for me. Do you have any status update on GP? Has he made any progress?
Not yet. We at practice yesterday, he felt really good. I just don't know, if he'll be cleared yet or not. I think he's going to have to go through Tuesday, Wednesday, and figure it out. Whatever the midweek report says, it'll be whatever it says. It'll be the end of the week that I think will give us a much better indication.
I wanted to ask another one about Zoe. It seems whenever something goes wrong, when he talks with us after the game, he shoulders it and takes responsibility for it. So, a down day in the passing game overall on Saturday. How have you seen him respond just so far to this point on a Monday?
Well, I think he's able to go back and really evaluate and see what's going on. Listen, there's probably 60% of that is not on him, right? So I think that's important to understand. He'll still take it, and say it was him. So I think that's, speaks volumes of the character of player that he is. But then there's got to be real conversations on the back end, of what do you need to see here? How do we get to, on the same page a little bit better, and the things of that nature without calling people out, but mostly being realistic and honest about it. I think that's a big piece of it. So he does a great job of doing that and being a leader. And I think that as he continues to grow in that role too, speaking up and getting those guys on the same page with him, so that we're not having conversations about 70 yards, 75 yards through the air.
Have you seen Louisiana's offense kind of transform a little bit from game one just because their starter got hurt? Have you seen it kind of evolve throughout the season? From
game one, let's just go to the last game. Yes, that number 2 came in to do a little bit here and there, but now if he's the star of the show, there's a lot of things in there that you got to defend, and they have a whole bye week on top of it to put more in. So all of the bash runs, all of the jets and things that come off of it, all of the quarterback reading things, all the glides and slides that he can then dump or pull down and run himself, and then they'll max him up and take shots. And these guys are capable downfield. You watched it happen in that Marshall game when they were down by a bunch and they needed to throw the ball vertically, and he was able to do that as well. So they'll grind it out behind 3 and behind 2 and behind that old line, and then when it's time to take shots, they'll take shots, and they've been more successful than not, with him in the game.
You mentioned earlier about DJ, but Lakota's going to talk to us too. But talk about his transformation. You guys again recruited him at Holy Cross, and he went somewhere else. But you guys saw him as a tight end. He was playing defensive end there. Can you just talk about what you've seen from him and his work ethic and how he's improved in his game and kind of become a leader in that tight end room?
Yeah, I sure can.
He's trying to avoid eye contact.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yep. Well, first, we share the same birthday, so I think that's important to recognize. But, he's done a phenomenal job. When we first initially, met him and had conversations with him and his family, it's just a great family and a great young man with, just a super physicality in that family, with the father lifting weights and the older brother, and just what he came up in, certainly laid the foundation for who he is today. But the thing that's pretty cool to watch him on is just how he grows as a player and how he continues to get better each week. But he's definitely not lacking for confidence, that's for sure. And I think that's one of the greatest attributes you could have, especially in his position. That's a physical position, and then you also have to have a skill set, to boot. And watching him catch the ball in the spring, and then watching him come back and catch the ball and run routes and do what he's done, in preseason, is just a very different football player. But again, that's going to come with years off from playing that position. But that's how quick of a learner he is, and how hard of a worker he is, that he can get himself into that position to, be a force out there on the field, which he is.
I know we only really saw Io late in the game on Saturday. Were you guys just trying to err on the side of caution with that?
Yeah, mostly. And he's there. He's like at 90% is what he said. But we were just, a little – it was just the right time for a change-up. And again, he came in. If he was playing that whole game, there's one more gap to his right that he's probably popping off a big run. But that's just – kind of the nature of the beast. But you saw them, they were tired, right? And I know our guys were, both Wayne and Jordan can go all day long, but to get a fresh set of legs in there, I think was something we were, interested in and really wanted to explore at that moment, because I thought that could be just that change of pace at that moment with fresh legs. What would that do? And we had a good play call. We just missed it by a half of a gap, and I think he could have set up a really big run. His next one went for 7 or 8, I think, anyway. But yeah, that was he wasn't 100%, but he was close. And the 85 Iowa at that moment, we felt like could give us something. Just didn't work out in that drive.
We're talking DJ in a second. I know Preston asked a similar type of question earlier, but Your experience kind of moving nickel corners to the outside a little bit, kind of talk me through that. He's played on the outside a little bit versus Louisville and against Georgia State, two bigger, tougher receivers he went up against. Kind of talk about your experience moving really good nickels to the outside and how DJ's kind of took on that, that change.
Yeah, I don't have like a ton of experience in it, because it's not, usually the nickel ends up in a situation where he's more of a cover guy that can also support the run and do all those things. But to go out there and play against an X receiver, and that's on the line, maybe pressing, like there's a lot more that has to go in it. Not everybody can do that, but he's able to do that. I consider him one of our best coverage, if not our best cover guy we got, period. So to know that we can trust him out there, it's just a different deal. You go from this, more confined, what feels like a confined space, to all the way out there by yourself, especially when we do that. It's often 12, personnel grouping. So there's 2 tight ends in the core and there's 2 receivers standing out here all by themselves. And that's where, it takes a different kid to be able to transition and handle that. And he's done a phenomenal job of it.